that metal interview.
A Second Chance is the new song and video single from Chris Caffery's project, Spirits of Fire. This is their second installment, Frontiers Music. Chris Caffery, for those of you that don't know, he is the guitar player, one of the guitar players for the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. And of course, there are two TSOs traveling and touring the US at this moment in December. He is with the East, I believe he's with the East touring band. Anyways, Chris Caffery is well known also for his time with Savatage. He was there since the late 80s and was absent for an album there in a little bit of time, and then he came right back. So Mr. Caffery talks to us about his time with Savatage. He shares some stories with time he spent with the legendary Criss Oliva, of course, may he rest in peace. And of course, he talks about his project, Spirits of Fire, and how he found this vocalist he has on there. I'll leave it for homework for you guys in case you don't know who he is or what band he has. He had Ripper Owens on their first album, Spirits of Fire, and he's not on the second album. So he talks about that. Anyways, let's spin A Second Chance, the latest single from Chris Caffery's Spirits of Fire. We'll be right back.
It's time to make a change. The vision's getting clear.
talk about melting your face, metal, splitting your head wide open, man, with these riffs. Mr. Caffery's riffs are always badass and in your face. So congrats to the guys in Spirits of Fire. And let's cut it short here and let's talk some Criss Caffery here. Here's our interview with Mr. Criss Caffery. Enjoy. A Second Chance, new single music video for Spirits of Fire. Man, what a jam. I heard the video. I saw the video, I'm sorry. Killer riffs, killer everything, man. Where do you get inspired, to come up with these riffs,
Well, with this record that I was doing, the second Spirits of Fire album, I had found out basically when I had just started writing for it that Ripper wasn't going to be doing it. And I had not really spoken to Ripper since, so I don't know every single reason as to why not, but I wanted to make some music. I was really kind of just a little tired. Not tired, I didn't want to do a solo record and a Spirits of Fire record and other things all at once, so I'm like, I wanted to focus on one thing. So I decided that was going to be the record, and Frontiers was looking for a singer to be involved with it, and what my focus was then was just really coming up with as many really cool metal guitar songs that I could. So I was piecing together all the music, and I wrote about, I'd say 16 or 17 songs, and the producer they had, Aldo, he just picked through on ones that he thought would make the best complete record, and that's the ones we used. And the thing with that, it's like my influences and roots are right directly from being in Savatage and the metal bands I played in, since Criss taught me a lot of how I play guitar anyway. So, I just was going there, and I just wanted to make something really good. And, it's not any offense to Ripper and anything, but I wanted to make sure that people didn't hear this second record and just jump all over it because he wasn't there. Yeah. So I had a little bit of a inspiration to make sure this one, I think, was good. I wanted to make sure people liked it and that nobody would say, it's garbage without Rip. So I'd say, no, it's not. Yeah. And that's a compliment to him because he's a great singer. So I, on the music end, was like, I want to raise this up and just make sure it's a really solid metal record. And then Fabio came in, and I think he did a great job at putting what these songs needed on vocals. He wrote the lyrics and melodies, and I just wrote the music on this, which is what I wanted to do. I didn't want to make it feel like I was doing another solo record. I wanted to do this album and focus on this music.
Well, you got some awesome ideas. I'm a huge Savatage fan, and of course, I love your solo record stuff and all your works, So,
well, thank you.
You can hear the Criss Oliva. You can hear all that Savatage stuff in your riffs. I'm a guitar player myself, and not as good as you are, but I can recognize. It's just like a Savatage times 2, if you will. Yeah. Yeah,
well, that's like I said, throughout the years, it's like those obvious influences and what had gone into my playing through that have come out, it's yeah. And in the beginning, too, when I first joined Savatage, it was really kind of freaky how much me and Chris's rhythm styles were similar, because we both had a lot of the same influences. Now, he definitely was more into Eddie Van Halen, and I was a little bit more into Randy Rhoads, so it's like my lead style went more of picking, where his lead style went a little bit more to the tapping at a lot of times, and that's where a lot of that difference had happened. And then Criss also, the Olivas were big Queen fans, and he'd always seen that Brian May was using his metal picks. Well, Criss did that, but Criss used a metal pick with a point, and that's where he got a lot of his really fast picking. Wow. Was from this metal pick that has a point on it, and I have those and I use those. Whenever I tour with Savatage, I use them all the time. I don't have a lot of them, so when I tour with TSO, I don't really use them that much because I don't want to lose them.
Wow. I got a couple of questions about Criss Oliva, may he rest in peace. Real quick, how did you find Fabio Leone, if that's the correct pronunciation? I know a bit about him, about Angra. How did you find Fabio?
Well, the Frontiers record label is located in Italy, and Fabio is Italian, and it's like that is kind of coincidental as to how he wound up doing it in a way, because he was on the list of people that we were working with. I actually started writing and working with Todd Hall, but Todd had been working on his solo record, and he just didn't really have the time to put into it. So, Todd did some great stuff, and he was a really cool guy, and he respectfully kind of passed on working on this, and Fabio was one of Frontier's choices. I let them kind of pick through it. I had a couple singers that I said we could use, but they said, try him, and they played me, I was familiar with him, but they played me his stuff, his ideas that he had written for these things, and it just really worked out well. I think that it seems to me, and I haven't really talked to him personally that much because he's in Italy and I'm in America, but it seems to me like he had fun going on to the role of being the metal singer, because his voice is so versatile, and he just went into singing metal, more in that feel of like of Ripper or Blitz or even Mike Howe, where he threw in that rasp and he just sang the Spirits of Fire record as
awesome
for what it is, a metal band.
He's just awesome. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Angra or his work. I do respect all bands, of course, and he's just awesome. And on Spirits, he just came out perfect for that, the
rest of the record is really, really, really strong too. I mean, this is only one of the songs, and it's not the strongest. This whole album is a great metal listen. It's I think, in my personal opinion, it's like in my top 5 of the metal records I've made. It's right there with Butcher and the Metallium record and
awesome.
Gutter Ballet. As far as like my top 5 favorite ones, the records that I've made in my career, I really like this one a lot.
So why Spirits of Fire? How did you come up with this name?
Well, it's funny because the first record, I did a bunch of the lyric writing because Ripper was really busy at the time, and he actually asked me, he's like, can you write some lyrics? So the Spirits of Fire song was one I'd written myself, and I just read a lot, and I knew we were doing something metal, and I'm kind of a good spirit kind of person, a positive person, and the fire spirits are the strongest and most powerful of the good spirits. And I wrote that song about, basically the world kind of needing help, and it needed something strong and powerful, because the fire spirits can destroy the worst of the bad evil. And that's where that was. And then Frontiers we hadn't named the band yet. So they were like, well, sometimes we like to name the band off of one of the song titles. And I'm like, well, the only song title that I think is good enough for a metal band name would be Spirits of Fire. And I don't want to call the band a game, So it's like so they picked that one, and then I kind of danced around the internet and found that original artwork for the first cover, and then they got the one made for the second. So it just fits. I mean, I was always a huge Maiden fan, and I'm a huge comic and art fan like that. So it was fun for me to have a little metal character on the front of the record. I mean, the whole thing with Butcher, we had so many different characters we were going to use as the Dr. Butcher guy, and that never really had a chance to grow too much. So now I got my own little metal monster to work with.
Awesome. Speaking of Dr. Butcher, any update on that for us fans?
Well, it's one of these things where I've been wanting to do one of those records for 20 years, and it always comes down to Oliva, and I'm not going to blame Oliva for everything, but, it's always something or one way or another. I think you got more chance of maybe seeing something come out from Savatage. I mean, we've been writing and talking about it now, so... I mean, it's the first time in a long time where I actually have been trading riffs and songs with John over the phone, and I have some really cool things. I have this one song that I wrote that he really likes, and it's kind of one that I think would be a good lead-off track for Savatage, that I was just calling The Dungeons Are Calling Again, and it's a really, really, really cool metal song. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I know a lot of people would like to see a new Savatage record, and it's just I think the cards are lining up. Whether or not it's going to fall into place, we'll find out. I mean, I always tend to stay really positive and optimistic about it, and I have for 20 years. So it's like, hopefully it does wind up happening. So we're not getting any younger.
Yeah, so that was one of my questions. Can you give us fans an update on Savatage, the new album, or anything like that? So you just answered that, so cool.
Yeah, and then there's some things that we're working on that we'd like to release in DVD form. So there might be a couple things people will be really happy to see pop out. Because there was some stuff that we had recorded, some full concerts from the Wake of Magellan tour, and there's some other footage that we might want to try to get. Unfortunately, there wasn't anything really that we could use from the Criss era as far as full concerts, which is very, very unfortunate. But we have some stuff from some of the other ones.
So how was it working with the legendary Criss Oliva? You got a couple of stories maybe you can share, or maybe one?
I mean, Criss was like my best friend out on the road. When we toured, it was with Savatage, there was like a couple different worlds. I mean, Johnny at that time, he was in some serious personal relationships. So when Johnny's in a relationship, he doesn't hang out or go out. He's a very loyal guy. So he just, would play the show, drink his beer, and go to sleep. Yeah. And Wackles was a businessman, so he never really hung out. And John was kind of like friends with the world. So, he would pop around and people would show up in every town. Everybody knew John. So it was like when Chris's wife wasn't around, because she would tour with us sometimes, I was Chris's hangout guy. And me and him, we'd get up and we'd wander the towns. And me and him always liked to go out and get Bloody Marys and because back at that time you were allowed to drink and go on stage. It was fun. I mean, we had whole days before we were headlining. We wouldn't have to go on stage till 11 at night sometimes. So there was a lot of times we'd be out during the day just going around town and going to theme parks or whatever. So he was, we had a lot of the same personality as far as our sense of humors. We would watch a lot of the same movies and things like that. And he was just like my big brother, which is like kind of weird. When I left Savatage to work with my own brother, they understood that. But for me, there's two things. First of all, I'm not on that Streets cover, which always breaks my heart and my soul, because it's like, it's really the only Savatage cover that's the band, and I should have been there, and I wasn't. I was only 21, and I wasn't really that knowledgeable of the business, and I could have just stayed in Savatage and tried what I did with my brother. But of course, back then you think you know the world, and I'm like, no, I'm going to leave and do this. And it was a mistake, and it wasn't even a year before I was back to working with John, and I almost went on tour playing guitar on the Streets tour. I mean, it's like I was packed and ready to go, but there was a little bit of a butting of the heads with the management in the band. It didn't even have anything to do with me. And all of a sudden Criss had passed away, and I lost those years. It was only a couple of years, but those were the final years of his life. So it always really bothered me for those two things. Number one, that I wasn't able to be a part of that Street image that is known as basically the history of Savatage and that Streets thing, because I have tons of years in Savatage. I have a lot of years. I mean, more. I'm no disrespect to Steve Wackles, but I have more years in that band than he does. And when the history of the band comes out, I'm not there, because the Streets cover always shows up, and it just kind of makes me mad at myself, because I think I let the Olivas down, and I might have let the fans down, and I think a lot of what the fans think of me and my importance to the band kind of got washed away for not being in that one moment. And it's like I said, you can't change what had happened, but it's something that always really bothers me. Plus, like I said, losing the last years of his life, which were unreplaceable. Yeah,
I wouldn't stress over that. I mean, as far as fans are concerned, I mean, we're all fans, and that's one of my questions there. Why do you think Savatage fans are so dedicated, man? So loyal.
There's a lot of different reasons. Number one, Savatage, the band, we're normal guys. There's no rock star egos or weirdness. Savatage, and especially the Olivas, we're so normal. And the fans, I think, read into that. We don't really consider ourselves any different than the fans. We're just a band that plays to them. And I think, O'Neill's lyrics really tied a lot of that together. There was things that related to a lot of people's personal lives. I consider Savatage kind of be like the queen of heavy metal, where Freddie Mercury wrote about life.
Yeah.
If you look at even the Queen songs, I mean, the drummer wrote the song about the car. Freddie Mercury was writing the songs about life and personal life and the things that filled those football stadiums. If Queen had fucking 100 songs about cars, they wouldn't be filling a football stadium. It's like those lyrics and that, you know, those things Freddie Mercury wrote in those lyrics, that's what made Queen Queen. I mean, the music was great, but it needed that bridge, which was those lyrics.
So real quick here, for fans that don't know, you started off with Savatage behind the scenes, if you will. You were you were playing guitars and keyboards off stage. Is this true?
Well, yeah, it was kind of like a confusing thing for everybody at the time. So I was working with Paul O'Neill when I was like 17 years old in the band Heaven, and Paul started producing Savatage, and Paul likes to make the sounds in the studio big, and his thing was this Savatage band, I'm doing this Mountain King record, but they'll never be able to sound like this live unless they get another guitar player. So the management came to me, and they asked me if I would. They said, if Savatage gets this tour with Dio and Megadeth, will you play guitar and keyboards? And I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. I learned all the music. Long story short, because it is a long story, I got the gig.
Nice.
And what happened was Criss Oliva wasn't really ready to share that band with another guitarist. So at first I started on the side of the stage, then he wanted me off the stage, then he wanted me in the band eventually. You know, so it was kind of one of these things where it was a little bit of a struggle as to figure out what are we doing with this guy that's here. But we became such good friends that I just became, you know, after the tour was done and they were doing Gutter, the Olivas invited me into the studio and said, look, we want you to join the band. And that was really because of the fact of how much we liked each other as people. You know, if I was an asshole, it wouldn't matter how good I played the guitar. Me and the Oliva brothers, you know, we were family. And when Criss was, that day when Criss was being, you know, his funeral, his mother and his father, they grabbed me and said, you need to stand next to us. You're a part of this family. And it's like, and that's the connection I had with them. And it's something that was there from the start. I mean, me and the Olivas were really close, but it's like that with all the Savatage guys. Savatage is a big family, and in many ways so is TSO, but it was really, we were really, really close in the Savatage days because we were basically kids. You know, we were coming out of our our teen years into our early 20s, and we all just, that was our little gang.
Wow. So I've been a fan since Mountain King. About 88, give or take. And I'm so proud of Savatage and what you guys have done, of course. When I see TSO commercials or whatever spots, you guys are playing stadiums, and I see that as Savatage playing stadiums. With
well, you know what, the TSO thing was made by Paul in the same mentality that Paul was. He was utilizing that same mentality with Savatage, with Streets, and with the records, with the stories, and even with Gutter Ballet, he had the orchestras. I mean, Paul had always had this idea of making something really big that could be rock and theater and all these things. So, you know, the elements of Savatage were a lot of the roots that were in that, and it's something we're all very proud of. When we step up on that stage on this new tour, we're starting the show with Welcome to the Show from the Savatage record, and it's just really, for me to look over and see Zach and see Jeff, it's like, yeah, we're a big part of something that became really special, and the full roots of it did happen out of Savatage. It's like, who knows what would have happened if Paul never worked with Savatage, or we never worked with Paul. I mean, it was just that whole you know, cycle of things and people that came together and made this happen. And like I said, I mean, even like I mentioned before with the lyrics, like, so much of this happened because of Paul. But that's because Paul he had a love of Savatage just as much as any of us. I mean, Paul O'Neill, till the day he died, would tell you that Criss Oliva was the best guitar player he ever worked with. I mean, hands down. I mean, so it's like Paul loved Savatage, you know, and John to him was you know, a hero as far as his music writing and his ability as a piano player and a singer. So Paul was as big of a fan as us as we were of the things he was doing. So it was just a ball of energy that made everything happen.
Awesome. Well, I'm so proud of whatever you guys are doing. You know, I see Savatage up there. You know, we got Jeff, like you said, you got Zach. Johnny's in there, right? Johnny's in there?
Yeah, Johnny and Al. I mean, Oliva's around all the time with us too. He just doesn't do the live touring, so he's still a big part of everything that goes on with TSO as far as the songs and the shows and putting things together. And the O'Neill family is still very, very much involved with everything. It's just one, like I said, big happy family with TSO. The whole thing is we're just trying to keep Paul's legacy alive and everything that he had created for all of us. So it's a good feeling. It's like I unfortunately can look around to those people that were such an important part of my life, and Criss had passed and Paul had passed, and it's hard, and the thing that makes it you able to deal with losing those people is the fact that I'm still keeping them alive and everything we do. So if we were to stop doing Savatage or stop doing TSO, those people would pass along with that, and it's something that we never wanted to happen, which is a main reason why we always kept Savatage going too. It's like we didn't want Chris's music to die with Criss, and it had nothing to do with us just trying to play music. Any of us could go and get in bands, but there really was only one Savatage, and we wanted to make sure that the younger generations of metal fans got a chance to hear that. So hopefully, like I said, we could put out something new and try to keep that going, but we'll see what happens.
Awesome. Can't wait for that. So as far as your solo records, can you give us an update on that? Anything new coming up for Criss Caffery?
Well, I'm going to go, once this TSO tour is done, I'm going to go home and start writing one. Like I said, I wanted to clear the Spirits one out of the way, and I also was writing some stuff for John with the idea of Savatage in my mind. So if I'm writing all that stuff at once, everything starts to sound the same. So it's like I wanted to get all that cleared, so when I get home, I'm going to go into figuring out what it is I want to do with my next record, whether I want to make some, add some more instrumental stuff into it, or what direction I want to go. I mean, obviously I've written a lot of metal stuff, and I'll always have stuff that's metal on my solo record, but I like that ability to mix all different kinds of music on them too, because for me it's just like, when I do a heavy metal record, I'm working kind of with 8 crayon colors, and when I do my solo records, I get the box of 64. So it's kind of like I use all of them, and sometimes maybe the picture's not as good as people want it to be, or it's a little bit too weird, but that for me, that's fun, and that's why it's what it is, my solo record. I do it for that reason.
So what's next on your agenda, Criss, after this tour? What can we expect?
Well, I mean, TSO's just finishing up, and it's been great to be out and seeing the fans. The shows are really well. The show is really awesome, and we're just having fun getting back out there. Being this time of the year is the time of the year that TSO, our family, because we weren't at home, was the TSO fans. So being back out this year, it feels really good, and we got 3 weeks left, and we're just going to get through this, and then everybody's going to, get home and do what it is we usually do, is kind of arrange our years, and hopefully everything stays the same way it did this year. We can get back out again next year, and we're working on trying to get some of Paul's unreleased music out, so TSO will be working on that. And like I said, there's some other things in the makings. And as far as live shows goes, I think a lot of that has to do with exactly where you're able to play. I mean, you always see people turning around, and a lot of European tours are already being moved to 2023 and this and that. So we'll see what happens with life. I mean, we're definitely in a different time. I wake up every day and I look, and it's kind of weird. I mean, for the first, I'm over 50 now. For the first 50 years of my life, it's like there wasn't anything this bizarre going on. So you turn on the news, maybe there was an earthquake, maybe there was a fire, maybe there was a shooting, maybe there was now you turn on the TV and all of it's happening at once. There's some giant tornadoes that are ripping apart towns, there's an earthquake, and there's a flood, and then there's a pandemic, and people are shooting up people, and things are burning here, and there's locusts and this and that, and I'm like, it's all going on at once. So it's like we're in a time of life which is way different than any other time I had, and I'm hoping this is just a phase, but I'm just going to stay positive and try to stay healthy and keep working, and I hope everybody just does the same thing. Just stay positive and healthy and smart. That's all we can do. Right. Crazy times for sure. So absolutely. So there you have it. New album, Embrace the Unknown, dropping February 18th of 22. Can we pre-order now, or? You can, but I don't know if you want to wait till, I don't know when Frontiers does the send out of this. So there's another single that'll be out in January video, and then there's a couple other releases, and then the record itself is out, I believe, February 18th. So you might want to promote the video and then just kind of wait to do the full album when you have a chance to hear the full record, because that'll be the time really when you could sit down and review the whole record. So right now, just you know, I want people to see the new video and get excited for it. A lot of people, nobody knew who the singer was going to be, so getting that little mystery out of the way was fun.
Awesome. Well, we thank you for your time, Chris. Appreciate it, and keep rocking, man. Keep making badass music.
All right, thank you. Have a good day, man. Thanks a lot.
Do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, share social media stuff, like blah blah blah. Thank you guys around the world for your continued support, downloading, streaming, and checking out our podcast. Thank you for sharing, of course, and be on the lookout for other guests as the train keeps rolling and rolling. So thank you guys on behalf of your friend James here, your host and friend from this chat about metal and rock. Thank you guys. Go ahead and log on and search Mr. Caffery's Spirits of Fire Frontiers Music, A Second Chance. Check out the video, A Second Chance, by the same name, and try to see if you can pre-order the album coming out in February, man. So don't forget to keep it metal.
That metal interview.